Stories are pretty formulaic when you think about it. As long as we know a few pieces of information, we can write a story that resonates at a human level, but we now need to personalize it to resonate at individual level as well. So that's a really unique thing that we weren't able to do before, but now we can see all these examples like Carvana sending videos that are personalized to their car owners, or folks that have sophisticated CRMs.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast here on the B Podcast Network. This is a show dedicated to helping higher ed marketers tell better stories, create better content, and enroll more students. My name's John Azzoni. I'm the founder at Unveiled, and we're a video production company working specifically with college marketing teams to make it easy for them to scale up and even automate their student and alumni success stories through our subscription approach. And you can learn more about that at unveiled.tv, and that's UNVEILD.tv. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have you. And if you're wanting your college and university's content to resonate on a deeper emotional level with prospective students, with alumni, with parents, whatever, I want you to subscribe to my free newsletter. Every week I send out tips and insights on creating more emotionally resonant content, including examples and best practices from other institutions, articles and blog posts, that week's podcast episode, and much more. So head over to unveiled.tv/newsletter and sign up. All right, let's get on with the show. My guest today is Ardis Kadiu. Ardis is an entrepreneur, technologist, AI fanatic, and CEO at Element451. Element451 is AI-powered CRM for student engagement. It empowers admissions and enrollment teams to work more efficiently as they develop stronger, more personalized engagements with prospective students. In this episode, we're talking about personalization, specifically in storytelling using AI. And we'll dive into this really cool video that Ardis turned me on to from Carvana, which sums up the power of personalization really well and possibilities with AI. We'll also have some bonus content from this episode come out in our weekly newsletter, so make sure you're signed up for that because it won't be available anywhere else. Ardis, welcome to the show.
It's great being here. Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us, I always like to start off the show by asking, what's something that people would be surprised to know about you? I'm sure a lot of people know you. A lot of people that I know know you. So what would be something that they might be surprised to know about?
I don't know about being surprised. I've had an interesting kind of story around forming the company and kind of immigrating here to the US. So I'm not a US native. So I only got my so I've been here for about 20 years or so. But yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Albania.
Okay, cool. Tell us a little bit about Element451. Give us a brief primer for people who haven't heard of you guys.
Yeah, Element451 is a AI-powered CRM. We essentially take care of the whole engagement layer of student to school interaction. So everything from top of the funnel marketing, email communication, SMS messaging, application management, even current student engagement with things like AI bots and copilots. So Element is that full life cycle CRM that a school can use for all of their constituents.
Awesome. So a lot of personalization opportunities in there. Talk a little bit about personalization. I think we all know that personalization is really important, and there's kind of like surface level personalization, which is like, okay, first name, that kind of thing, or a company name or something like that. Like, but why is it important to maybe go a little deeper than that?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the word that everybody loves the most is their own name. So when you're putting somebody's name, when you're calling their name, that resonates with us. So the familiar and the trust aspect of something that's familiar to us, we interact with other humans and other people. And the way that we build that trust is by a common and shared experiences or shared knowledge. And if you know me and I know you, then you know something about me, and we kind of trust each other. So that's why, like recommendations or introductions by friends, it's like the whole star system, right? The whole recommendation system that we're so used to right now. It's all about trust. So that's when we think about personalization, it's all about, okay, I know something about you and I want to feel that I know you so you can trust me, so we can get past that hurdle of essentially, you know, the shutdown, right? Because as
Yeah.
consumers, we're being bombarded so much with information and so much with offers and things like that. So our minds are really shut to any new interaction. So when we see that somebody else knows us, or we see those signals of trust coming in, then we open up to the actual message of what's on the other side.
Yeah, I find that to be true. Like I feel like I don't ask for a lot when it comes to like people, reaching out to me cold, because I get it. Like, as a business owner myself, like, you got to put food on the table. You got to go out there and get some business.
Yeah,
But I'm just kind of like I'm looking for signals of like, did you even spend 10 seconds, on my
right.
LinkedIn profile? Did you anything, or are you trying to dupe me into thinking that you've researched me? Like, I can always tell is like, I'll get these emails. It's like, I'm so impressed by what you've done in the music industry. And I'm like, where did you get that? I don't somehow, there must be an
Is
unveiled
that a
in the music.
keyword that you have or something? Yeah.
I have nothing to do. There's some sort of Spotify something connection with music industry. And I'll get these all the time. And I'm like, you clearly are lying.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, I think, we can all agree like personalization is really important, and from a higher ed perspective, doing outreach to students and things like that, like you said, the first name, there's some like little merge tags that even just in email that you can personalize. But when it comes to personalization in general, whether it's web content or whether it's emails or video or whatever, I think if anyone's like me, the struggle is how do you do that at scale?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so talk a little bit about like maybe ways that are happening at scale right now that people can implement.
Yeah. I mean, when you're sending stuff out, it's all about, you mentioned like those merge tags. So you have a piece of information in your database and you're kind of trying to merge it so it becomes personal to that particular record or person. However, um, there is no editorial, there's no generation of story there. So it's very templatized. So which is great for, the way that our systems are built right now around retrieval, right? So we retrieve information from somewhere, we put it together in a template, and then we send it out. Now, the only way that you can do that personalization where it's unique to each person is by, writing it or changing it human based, as of maybe a year ago, right? Or maybe as of 6 months ago.
Yeah.
With generative AI, that has completely flipped on its head how we can now generate content based on those data points that is as good or even better than what a human can do. And because those machines, and because those models can run 24/7, and they don't get tired of writing the, variations for hundreds or even thousands of people, we can now scale that infinitely, or we can scale it to our whole databases of people that we're reaching out. So it's changing the compute and the personalization engine from a, I'm going to retrieve something about you and I'm going to merge tags, to I'm going to retrieve and generate
Mm,
something that is unique to you. So that generation part is very, very new, and something that we're seeing in email, text generation, audio, video, a whole lot of different modalities of content. Of course, it's a lot easier with text right now.
right. Absolutely. That's why I'm excited to talk about the Carvana thing, but I do want to talk about like in our earlier conversations before we started recording, we're talking about the opportunity for storytelling. And
Yeah.
when you know something about an organization, or in the case of higher ed, a prospective student, and you can tell a specific story that they're going to resonate with, that's super powerful. That's why we have like, you have like case studies or something like that. If you're just if you're like a
Yep.
B2B or something like that, because you have all these kind of different examples of, you go into a sales meeting or something and go, okay, they have this problem. I'm going to share this story with them. In the case of like prospective students, like how do you see that like playing out in terms of like storytelling and personalizing a story to, say, a prospective student?
That's very hard. Actually, last week I had a conversation with my marketing and sales team, and it's like, okay, we need to put together a bunch of case studies. You mentioned case studies. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, give us the personas that these case studies are going to, and then we'll put them together and we're going to, put together a one sheeter or something. And it's like, whoa, that's such an old way of thinking about it. And it's like, that's going to change. Like the person that you're talking to has a very different, intent of why they're doing what they're doing and why they're talking to you, or what their motivations are. So the combination of all those different things, you're going to give them something that's going to be a little bit more generic, right? So case studies need to tell a story which is very specific to the person on the other side, right? And the combination of 5, 10, 20 different variables that you have as pieces of data is going to derive you um, 400, 500, 600 different variations that you're going to need, combinations that you need to come up with, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So the only way that you can kind of do that is by using technology and kind of telling a story that is going to resonate the most with that person, right? By knowing what's important to them and by retrieving certain pieces of information, then you can write that story. I mean, stories are pretty formulaic when you think about it. They're
Hmm.
like we've written stories now for hundreds or thousands of years. We know how to write really good stories. They're very formulaic. So, as long as we know a few pieces of information, we can write a story that resonates at a human level, but we now need to personalize it to resonate at an individual level as well, right? So
Hmm.
so that's a really unique thing that we weren't able to do before, but now we can see all these examples, like you mentioned, for example, Carvana sending videos that are personalized, and we'll talk about that to their car owners, um, or folks, for example, that have sophisticated CRMs sending communications that are specific to what the person um, is studying, plus where they live, plus what pages they viewed on the school's website. And by sending those communications and weaving in the content that's specific to what the actions is that they did, that's essentially putting a story together, right?
Right.
So a series of pieces of content that are written in a specific sequence are telling a story. It might not necessarily be a movie story or something like
Yeah.
that, but it's actually telling a story of intent,
Hmm.
right? The person has an intent to enroll or has an intent to apply or something like that, and they're following a particular journey. I mean, you can call it a journey as well, but it's again like the how you help them along that journey. That's the story. The hero's journey, for example. It's like when you position a product as kind of the guide rather than the
Right.
hero,
Hmm.
like you try to do that. And the school, traditionally for us, when we market a school and we talk about it from our marketing perspective, we think about a school being, or the student being, the hero of the story. The school is never the hero, right? The school is always the guide. So the hero is your Luke Skywalker, right? And then you have Han Solo being the guide, um, trying to guide him along, and they're always at the right time, giving them advice or pushing them to the next kind of piece of the journey. And that's how you position yourself, right? That's how the brands position themselves as kind of guides rather than heroes. And heroes are always the consumer, or they're always the student, or
Mhm.
so that's an interesting way that we have thought about it in the past. And we're like, well, how does Element as a tool fit into that story?
Right.
I'm like, we're not the guide. We're certainly not the guide. Well, we're not the hero. So how do we position ourselves? Um,
You're
we
like the
can be the
guide to the guide.
lightsaber. We can be the light. We're the tool, right? We're the magical tool, the lightsabers, and we're the, that is helping the the guide. We're the tool chest, so to speak, that's
Right.
helping them provide what the hero needs. So it's an interesting exercise to think about where you fit in the consumer's mindset.
I've tried to watch Star Wars. I don't know much about it, but I can confidently say, what good is Luke Skywalker without his lightsaber?
Yep, yep, exactly.
So, few years ago, everyone makes these New Year's resolutions, and my resolution was to try to watch all the Star Wars, the whole Star Wars series. And then I got really overwhelmed because everyone has an opinion about what order you're supposed to watch them in.
Yep, yep,
And
yep.
then I watched, so I ended up watching the very first one that the first one that ever came out. Um, and I was just like, I kept having to ask my wife, like, what is happening here? I have such a squirrel brain. I'm like, I have to like rewatch things. And I was like, all right, one is enough. I did the first one, and then we didn't go any
We're probably
further
going to
than
get
that.
some hate mail for this, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, in that hero's journey, it really is like you're speaking to what they want. And I think that's
Yeah,
the temptation that every marketer faces, is to talk about the product, which is, jump right to the solution, before addressing like, what does that person want? And it's in that desire that person has that makes them the hero. They're trying to achieve something. They're the ones overcoming obstacles. You and your brand are either guiding them, or you are the tool that's helping the whatever. But you're not the hero, and
yeah,
the opportunity for personalization really, I think, really is strong there. And I think, like, for me, I do a lot of outreach. I'll reach out to people on LinkedIn, and I'm like, I like genuinely want to get to know, this person that whose profile I pulled up, and I'm like, I wish there was a way where I could know like deeper things about, what they've written about in the past, or what they're trying to do, or something like that, versus just what you can find on their LinkedIn profile. And half the people aren't even active on LinkedIn, so it's just like where they went to college, and
right.
where they worked last. But yeah, it's just like if you could combine that, like, here's the journey that you're on, and the AI like knows that journey,
Hmm.
somehow, and then you can plug your product along that journey. That seems insanely powerful.
Yeah, I mean that's an area where there's so much software being developed right now around behavioral marketing. So it's like we had behavioral marketing before, where it's like, hey, I know what your behaviors are, like what you did, how many posts you posted, what's the content on those posts. But you needed a human to synthesize all of that before.
Hmm.
And the AI was there, but it was all about machine learning. It's like, okay, you did this action, the next action is going to be this and this. However, there was no ability to provide personalization on the nudges, on the content itself, and to essentially provide personalized outreach to say, okay, hey, I know what you're doing, but here is something that I know about you, and this is actually content that's for you, unless a human wrote it or a human
Hmm.
produced it. Now we're able to do that without a human in the loop, which brings us back to the generation part is what is new. And what is so exciting today is that we're able to generate content that is complete and send it to the user to get them to do the things that
Hmm.
we wanted to do, which is great, man. It's I haven't been more excited about the generation part since we figured out. Um, I mean, when we launched Element or when we launched the product, it was all about personalization. It's like, okay, we have all of these email communication flows. You needed so many different permutations of the emails to change. We figured a way to do it more dynamically. So all you had to do is change the little snippets of information and content and areas and images. So you can kind of dynamically move those in and out.
Hmm.
But somebody had to write and build those. But that was really exciting. This was like 10 years ago, or 5 years
Yeah.
ago, 7 years ago. Now we're building what we're calling kind of these AI blocks. And essentially somebody can write an intent of a prompt in there. And rather than you writing that paragraph or writing that image, it's going to change it depending on what information or tokens you're putting in for that student. So if you're saying write a message about their program, and tied to how can these be impactful in their location or their city, like that is super important, because now when the email goes out, it can pull together the program of interest, which can be, let's say, engineering or mechanical engineering, and you can pull together the location, which can be, let's say, Michigan or Detroit or whatever. And now, because of those two components, the AI is going to give them something that resonates with them around. I'm pretty sure it's going to be something automotive or something along those
Hmm.
lines, but you know what I mean? But if it was a different location, if it was, let's say, the southeast or California or whatever, like that would be different messaging.
Yeah.
So it's so exciting because that's new. That's very new.
Yeah. I've been editing a lot of. I've just been in like year-end deadline, edits mode lately. And I saw the music company that I pull my soundtracks from has implemented like an AI search function, which is amazing because I mean, if you know any video editors, they would say that's the most tedious part of the process is finding the right song,
Mhm.
and then you do all that work to find the right song, and then the client decides to change the song. But I was able to just be like, I'm telling the story of this person. She's talking about this. I want the song to kind of be like this. And it pulled a list. I'm like, the first 2, 3, 4 of them were like spot on. And I was like, this is cool. I mean, it's simple, just a simple use of AI, but even just the ability to give it context for what you're doing rather than
Exactly.
having to having to give it, I want a song that's light and beautiful and
Right.
upbeat, because that's how you used to have to search for music, was you check these filter marks, and every site has different labels for those, and
Yes. Exactly.
different
Exactly.
interpretations of what beautiful means or what upbeat means. So it's really amazing.
Hey,
um
wouldn't it be really nice if you actually just feed it the script and you can tell generate music that, that goes along with this script?
yeah, yeah, that would
That'd be
be
pretty cool, right?
pretty cool. I am excited for, I know I've, some video people are nervous about AI in the video landscape and being replaced and all this stuff, but I'm excited because I think it's those kind of tools that help me get to the fun part faster. You know,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
like it's like yes, I can go through hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of interview footage and eventually pull a story together that's good. But if I can like kind of just give it some direction,
Mhm.
some AI tool, some direction, and say, this is kind of the story arc that we're going for, this is what the client, this is what their goals are, blah, 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 give it some keywords, and then boom, like that's like, I'm like praying for that to come through. Cause like, that just takes the most tedious part of the entire process, like going through these transcripts and listening
Yeah.
through interview footage and stuff, to get to the part where, okay, now we're building something, now we're putting visuals in place, and we're moving things around, and we're cooking with gas here, or grease, whatever.
Cooking with gas. Yes. Or both. And so that is really interesting. I think I think a lot of people, you hit on one interesting area where a lot of folks are a little bit afraid of the automation, or it's like, well, I do that now. Like, what's going to happen to me, right? And they're not looking at it from a value creation perspective. It's like, as a customer, I'm hiring you to provide me an end result or a product or an outcome for that matter, right? And if it takes you 2 minutes, or if it takes you, you know, 50 hours, like I value this thing a certain way. And if you can get it a lot done a lot faster, then you can do a lot more with your time, and you can do a lot more. But this idea of hourly, thinking about it as an hourly output, can be a little bit tricky as we kind of transition, as we start working on different types of work, right? It's like, it's about the outcome, and it's about the value that you're creating rather than how much time you put into producing something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that whole value based thing is yeah, versus just like, I'm going to take a long time on this because I have to justify the what we're
Exactly.
charging or something like that. But yeah, if I can get stuff done faster, I can provide so much more value because I'm like, all right, let's do more with this footage. Quick break here to tell you about a thing that all the cool higher ed marketers are doing. They've all subscribed to the Higher Ed Storytellers Digest. It's my weekly email newsletter where I unpack practical tips, insights, and inspiration for creating more emotionally resonant content for their institutions. And guess what? I think you're cool, and I want you on the list. Past newsletters have featured stuff like the anatomy of viral content. What makes a piece of content spread like wildfire? Also, examples of really compelling user-generated video content coming out of other institutions and getting a lot of traction on YouTube. We've also talked about how emotional content isn't just being sappy all the time. There's a variety of emotions that your content can speak to that can inspire a prospective student to take the next step with your institution. And so we've unpacked that. We've shared exclusive mini podcast episodes and bonus content that you can't get anywhere else but the newsletter. We've shared workflow tips for using AI to aid in content creation, all kinds of stuff that we unpack in this newsletter. And on more than one occasion, I've treated my entire list to free Starbucks. I make no promises, but just saying, it's been done twice. You'll also stay up to date on the latest episodes from this podcast. So if email is a better way for you to subscribe to a podcast, this is the way. So head over to unveiled.tv/newsletter and sign up. And when you sign up, you'll be given immediate access to all the previous editions of the newsletter, so you can binge the various topics that we've touched on and links and resources we've shared, all that stuff. So do that. Unveiled.tv/newsletter. Unveiled is spelled Unveiled. Okay, back to the show. All right, so speaking of video, Carvana. So you turned me on to this video. I watched it this morning prepping for this episode, and I was floored. And so there's many, obviously it's personal, so there's many versions of this. There's like 43 million or 43,000 different, people that they sent this to.
I'll never forget the day we met. I was so excited. It was March 31st, 2022. Everyone was posting their Wordle scores. Whoa. It was National Crayon Day? That's wild. Spring had finally arrived, and you and I were both in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Gosh, we were just kids then. It was a wide-eyed and innocent 2015 red Hyundai Sonata. And they had just told me the name of my new owner, Giovanni. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Pure language is tricky, but I love it. G, giraffe, rate, gears, those things are so fun to shift. I know this is crazy, but do you believe in fate? I mean, out of Carvana's millions of cars and tens of millions of online visitors, you picked me. Me. Look how many of us there are. Whoa. Even before you chose me, I was already dreaming of everything we do together. Driving along the coast, looking out at the boardwalk, or maybe you take me to New York so we can get stuck in traffic together. But to be honest, It didn't really matter what we do, so long as I'd be doing it with you. Carvana is celebrating our millions of customers. But this isn't just the story of that. This is about the millions of stories that came out of it. Like our story. You and me, pal. I'm your sidekick, your wing machine, your home away from home. I'm your car. And I'm glad we're on this joyride together.
For people listening, so Carvana, you sell your car. I think it's the one where you sell, they'll come pick it up, and
Yes.
you know, you can sell a car, you could buy a car on Carvana. So what they did is everyone that bought a car, you get this like personalized story, which was, it's like for the one that I watched is like from the perspective of this 2015 Mazda sedan or whatever, and it's like driving down the road, and it's just like, remember the day that we met, you know, people were you know, and it has some inputs like what was happening on that day that you bought that car, which is like, in general, oh, people were sharing their Wordle, you know, scores, and you know,
Yep.
and it was National
Pizza
Cram
Rat
Day.
was a thing, right? If you're in New York City, yeah.
Right. And then it just kept going, and then it had like a location thing where it's like a location specific little touch point, which was like, and then the sign changed to say like, oh, you bought this in New York or whatever, here's what was going on. Anyways, so if you're listening, I'll link to some of these in the show notes. But I just thought that was amazing, and I was trying to dissect how they would do that. Give me your thoughts on like, how could that even be done? You know, if you were to like reverse engineer what they did, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they have a pretty good. I think there were some articles around like how they did it, but if you think about it, we go back to the templatization of a story. So that you have a story, and you want to tell this story, and you're making it pretty generalized. It's like, okay, I want to make a connection with you, so I'm going to provide some personalization there around things that were happening in the world around dates and times, right? So you're anchoring around dates and times. And then you're going in and you say, okay, here's a bunch of keywords around those dates and times, pulling them from news articles, from news headlines. So that's what they did. They went into Google News, and then they said, for every day over the last whatever years, give us the 5 or 10 social headlines that were in the news. So now they pull together the headlines for Google News, and they say, okay, now that's relevant. The location or where the car was picked up and where the destination was, they already had that. They have that in the database. So that's something that they started already with a database. Like that's proprietary information that they had. So now they can kind of pull that out and start creating an image that it's a little bit relevant to that. The way that they did it in order to create all these different images is that I'm not sure if they created them before or they put it together after, but they used generative AI and to kind of create all these different images. So they used a version of DALL-E, or I forget what else, but essentially you put in keywords of different things, or you put in the text, and then you generate that image of the thing. So now they have a massive amount of, for every person or for every location and every day, they have like the news, they have the different locations, they have the different destinations, right? So when you go past in the highway, they have the sign of what city they're passing by or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they have the car as well, because you see the car in there. So they had to have the make of the car and the color. So they had variations on all these different makes and colors as well. So they created a massive library for each one of these different variables that they're changing, variations for each one of those. And then when they're putting the story together, they're saying, okay, John, did it on this day, and this is the make that he had, and here's the destination that he went to, and now we're going to build a personalized story based on replacing the variables in this template with John's variables. And because we have created all of the all of those assets before, which is hundreds of thousands of assets, we're going to dynamically create that video for them and render it. So we're going to put all the edits right? So it's like just swapping all the edits together with the right assets, and then creating that video. So that's a really it's a very hard to do, right? Because now you have, like I said, thousands of different permutations or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they pulled it off, right? I mean, they pulled it off, and the value that the customer got out of it, and the goodwill and the marketing, juice they got out of it was incredible.
It was cool because like I felt something watching it.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah,
this personification of a car. It was like the car talking to the buyer as if they now have this special, like they adopted a child or something like that. And it was
exactly. That's the
and it's
story
just,
part, right?
and that's like the hallmark of like really getting to the emotion of why people buy a car, to go on adventures, to go,
Yes.
you spend so much time in there. And it mentioned like getting stuck in like New York traffic or something like that. He's like, we'll get stuck
Yes.
in traffic together. And it's just like this, and people, it's like almost tapping into that where like people name their cars too, and it's super cool because I've experimented with Runway ML. It's the video AI video creation
Yep.
with like very poor results. It's rough. It's rough out there. And I was impressed
Yeah.
with like, for people listening, we'll put one of these videos in the actual episode here, so you can at least hear the script. And if you're watching on video, you can see the video. But to explain the video part, they really leaned into the AI look. I feel like, because I think what's tough about any application, any new sort of application, is trying to fit that application's output into the old way of doing things, the
Yep.
new wine and old wineskins or something like that, from the
Yeah.
and so for me, like I think it was really about like struggling to get it to look like real video, like real cinematic video. And then it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, like let's embrace the style that it's putting out, and let's kind of try to guide that style a little bit. And I just was amazed at like, how would you even quality control that? Because all the scenes blend together just so seamlessly. And I would be afraid to like send something out that was like embarrassing, like some mishap, in there.
Well, I'm sure they're not showing you the mishaps, so I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some mishaps in there for sure. But you mentioned Runway ML. Last week there was something really interesting. Pika 1.0 was released, and that's another platform that does text to video generation. And a lot of folks are saying, is this the Chat GPT moment for video generation? So Pika 1.5, 1.0, is really good at producing video. I don't know how long it is, but the quality has gone so much better with Pika as well. To your point around leaning into the output, it's very similar to, if you remember, a lot of folks were trying to produce very highly produced videos for social, right? And essentially the videos who were getting the most engagement were the authentic, like what we call authentic, right? There's not really authentic, but but basically the ones shot from a cell phone, the 9:16 aspect ratio rather than 16:9. So like you had that look that kind of matches the medium and matches kind of the expected output. You're not trying to fake it, right? You're not having this really nicely produced videos on social to kind of get somebody. It's like, oh no, that's an advertising one. It's like, I'm not going to pay attention.
Yeah.
So there's a trust aspect to that as well, right? So the content needs to fit in the medium as well. So I can see that happening now, where over the next 6 months to a year, as we produce this AI generated stuff, story is going to be very important, and people are not going to pay as much attention to the actual quality of the asset or of the the visuals, but they're going to care of the story as long as that story. And then it's going to get better and better and better with images and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
But it's going to be, there's going to be a period of time where if you pass it off for high quality stuff, it's like you go through that uncanny valley, so to speak, right? It's like,
Hmm.
you know, it's fake, but at the same time, it's just like it better be really fake, or it not if it's very close to human production, or but not quite there. Like our mental model, like our minds actually reject that, and have an adverse reaction to it, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't appreciate that if it's close enough but not quite there. Like we see that as a bigger negative than if it's like completely messed up or
Right.
not messed up, but like completely
Yeah.
cartoonish, so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah. It's like I tried going vegan for a period of time, and the one thing you notice trying to go vegan is all the foods that are trying to they're forcing veganism into like junk food. Like you're trying to like take like normal food and then make a vegan version of it, and it's like vegan brownies, vegan pancakes, like you're just like, it's like maybe let's just embrace, like let's not try to force,
Yeah.
vegetables into everything. Let's just like kind of have its own category over here. um and yeah, I'm no longer a vegan. I couldn't do it. I like cheese too much.
Yeah. Same. Wine and cheese, of course.
Yeah, but I think that's cool, like the personalization opportunities coming down the line for video, AI, generative AI for video. I imagine, like, what if you could feed AI, some AI app, like key landmarks from your campus? Because one thing I notice shooting video for a lot of schools, everyone has like kind of like, oh, this is an iconic spot right here, or an iconic building,
Hmm.
or an iconic courtyard, or whatever. Having a library of those kind of templates or whatever that you can start with, feed it that, and then have the ability for it to create videos based on where that student might want to hang out, based on content they've consumed, or something like, oh, we see you've been watching all these like white noise ASMR videos on YouTube, so maybe you'd want to come hang out at our law library, where it's like the most relaxing place you've ever been in your life. I can see that being really cool. I've tried to play around with that. I've tried to take, like, let's take an iconic building from a school I was working with, and then I fed it into Runway ML. It didn't quite get it, but I'm like, it's getting there. Like, it's gonna be there sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, have you a lot of folks are really interested in kind of how that feeds into the whole privacy thing with, or also um authenticity and trust with deep fakes, for example. It's like, how do you, like, if you're generating, you can have an actual actor do something, and then you can superimpose somebody else's face, or that student,
Yeah.
or the, or the president, like playing basketball, or the president doing all these different activities that a student would do, but now they're deep faked into all those activities. So maybe that president then would have a much better connection with those students if the students see that. Wouldn't that be really interesting? Or having them speak in very different languages, like having those videos be in every different language depending on who the student is and where they're coming from, for international recruiting.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool example of how can you use these AI models. Are you use 11 Labs, I'm assuming, for some stuff?
Honestly, haven't like gotten too deep down the generative video rabbit hole. I've used Runway a little bit, and that's as far as I've gotten.
Yeah. 11 Labs is a audio synthesizer. Basically, it's a voice um, synthetic. It generates a lot of synthetic audio, right? And one of the things that they did recently is have, you can upload your voice in there, and it can translate that into dozens and dozens of different languages. And
Oh,
there's
that's
also
cool.
another model that you can upload a video and you will translate it into different languages, which is pretty cool, right? Because now you can upload your finished video. You can say, you know what, we can have this in Spanish, we can have it in Japanese, we can have it in Chinese, and you don't have to record all that stuff in all those different languages. So
Right.
that's anyways. So 11 Labs, it's a very cool website where you can do some of that audio
I'll check that
translation
out. What is
synthesis.
one of my
11
favorite?
as the word 11 Labs.
Oh, 11 Labs. Okay. One of my favorite Instagram accounts or TikTok accounts right now is like this. They take snippets from interviews with the singer Ice Spice, and they and they impose President Obama's face and voice into it, and so
Yeah.
they just have him saying like just these like rap culture stuff, which is like
Yeah.
so hilarious.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
I mean, that's pretty entertaining, right? It's like, but as long as you know that you're being entertained and not watching a political figure, telling you something that's super important
right.
like there's a difference there. So as entertainers or somebody who's producing content for education stuff, like I'm sure you're more aligned with, hey, we're going to use these tools not to deepfake, but just to tell a different story, so to speak, right? And we're going to tell
For
the
sure.
audience that this is not real. Like if we take that example of the president playing basketball or playing football or being the football coach, and let's say they're the chemistry teacher and whatever, you can so picture it being like coming back to the office and being, oh man, I'm so tired, doing all these different things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a key point about storytelling is there's a whole ethics and storytelling kind of component
Yeah.
to that. And like, I never want to misrepresent anyone whose story
Right.
I'm telling. And that's very important to me because, having a narrative license, where maybe you rephrase things and maybe you rephrase it in a way that didn't exactly happen in that chronological order, but said that way it's more easy to grasp. But then, crossing that line is like completely misrepresenting what they said because it benefits, the agenda that you have as a marketer or whatever. So yeah, definitely like ethics is a big component of storytelling. Cool. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Ardis. So where can people connect with you and Element at?
So I'm mostly on LinkedIn, just Ardis Kadiu on LinkedIn or /Ardis. And Element451 is on our website, element451.com. That's where most of the content and videos and other things get posted.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. This has been a great conversation. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
For our listeners, reminder to sign up for our newsletter at unveiled.tv/newsletter to access bonus content from this episode where Ardis tells us one tactic that they've been implementing at Element451 that has produced surprising results. Don't miss that. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. 3 things I want to give you before you go. Number 1, reminder to sign up for my free weekly newsletter, all about creating content that resonates emotionally with your audience. And you can do that at unveiled.tv/newsletter. Unveiled is spelled UNVEILD. Number 2, if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Share it with your team, your boss, your dog, whatever. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love for you to do that. Number 3, reach out to me. If you have comments, questions, you want to talk about a video project, whatever, my email is john@unveiled.tv. John is spelled JOHN. Or follow me on LinkedIn. If you're searching for me, my last name is spelled AZONI. That's all for today, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode of the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast. Thanks.